I know, before y'all start booing me, I promise it's not as bad as you think. Thaumcraft is useful, and whether you like it or not, it's a required mod in New Horizons, so might as well learn to deal with it. Plus, a lot of cool shit is locked behind this mod anyways, like the boots that let you run at Mach 10, or saplings that just give you infinite resources for free, or even just straight up free amps of energy that's unironically pretty strong with spam, but that's like a whole nother topic for another time. For now though, this video is going to cover the automation of essentially all of Thaumcraft's aspects, so you never have to manually do any of this shit for yourself, from skipping the stupid research minigame all the way to full-blown infusion. And stop throwing tomatoes, at least this mod isn't fucking Steve's Carts, or even worse, Bartworks. Anyways, enough of the introductions, it's building time. First things first, you'll need to get some nodes. To jar a node, you need to get it full boxed with glass in a 3x3 area, and then just top it off with any wooden slabs. Right click your wand on it, and there's your node in a jar. To let it free, you just right click the jar with the wand, pretty simple stuff. These spawn out in the wild randomly or renewably in silverwood trees if you don't want to leave your personal dimension. Yes, I'm talking to you. Anyways, once you have your nodes, you can start building your first Thaumcraft multi, the research completer. Bet half you guys didn't even know this thing existed, by the way. It's usually pretty useless, as all it does is complete the research minigame for you, but it slowly consumes a node in the center while doing so. So extended use of it isn't really sustainable unless your definition of fun is going out and drawing random nodes in the wild. Thankfully, the empowering bee exists, which comes with a trait called, you guessed it, empowering, that adds random aspects into the node. Now you can take an educated guess as what happens when you take a machine that needs a node to run and a swarm of bees that's only purpose is to recharge a node. One thing is that the speed at which the bee produces aspects scales with its production speed, so you want them at blinding if possible. I'll have on screen some numbers about the rates, but essentially you want a power of 2 for every tier your research completer is at. Mine's going to be at EV, so you want 8 blinding empowering bees to match its rate. Alright, so first things first, we want to set up the actual research completer. So it's going to be hollow in the center, with warded glass in the second layer. And then at the top here, we can just have the maintenance hatch, input bus, and then energy hatch, and the rest. And don't put the node in until after, because it'll slowly start decaying. So you want to put them in after the bees. This is running at EV, so we're going to put it at 1 EV amp. That should be good. And then next we want to set up the bees. So here we can just put all 8 of the 8 berries at the top here. And then these guys all have blinding and empowering. You don't actually need the empowering bee because it's the empowering trait that matters. So if you can siphon that off somehow, then it works. Then off of here, we want to link them up with item conduits with cell feed and activate with redstone, insert and extract on all of these guys. You can just take a conduit probe, copy the setting, and then paste it onto all the other conduits really easily like that. Then once that's done, you want to set up the 2 drawers with void upgrades and lock them with honeycombs, which is what these guys produce, and an unknown genome drone, so they stack in the drawer here. And then after that, we need to set up the flower, so we can just put that back here. And these guys might take a while to detect it. And then the last part is that the input bus here, we want to have an insert. You would just get research notes as you would normally, but here I'm just going to spawn some in and then put them in there, so that should work. And then from that we will take the node. You just want to put it on the same layer as the warded glass. See the bees are working? Yep. Right click it with a wand to release it, and you can see the Wayla at the top, it's getting more aspects. So then we should be free to turn the research station on, and it should start. Yep. It's going to start analyzing all these. Since I'm in a creative world, I have all the research unlocked, but it still scans it nonetheless. So 15 seconds each at EV is pretty good, and 8 bees is enough to match it at EV. So yeah, pretty simple. Useful multi-block. But what good is research if you don't have any Essentia? Because Thaumcraft's not like the other girls, almost all the mod is gated behind its own made-up currency called Essentia that you're supposed to obtain through smelting items down for their raw aspects. However, that's something we're not going to be doing, as passively maintaining all 69 Essentia types would require more infrastructure than half of y'all's bases have. Instead, bees come in clutch once again with the Essentia bee. This guy is able to output 9 unique Essentia types in an alveary, and with 69 unique types, 8 alvearies covers all your Essentia needs for forever. You could theoretically put more alvearies down if you wanted to double up on the production of specific aspects, but in practice Essentia storage is incredibly cheap, and these guys never take a day off anyways, so your 64k cells will basically always be full. Now, building this thing actually isn't too bad. So first of all, we want to set up the connection to the applied Energistics setup that we'll have later. So that means the wireless connector here with the 3 Essentia providers. Connect them up with Essentia tubes And then we have these Apimancer's drainers, which we have to filter each one for unique Essentia type. So we want to take these out. You can only filter them from the side, so just make sure to do that. So place 3, and then filter 3, and then just repeat it for 9 types of your choosing. Once you have them all filtered, then we can set up the actual alveoli. So that's going to be all this. So we want you have to make sure that the alveoli blocks are at the bottom because the Apimancer's drainer doesn't respect the other alveoli blocks from extra Bs. So that, and then on here, then you can put the electrical stimulators and alveoli transmission. The Essentia B is like the empowering B, as more production speed gives it more, more Essentia production. So it's really nice. Just put the flower here, and then we want to put there, and then for the electrical stimulators, we're going to need to inject them with the intricate circuit boards. So on one, you want 4 diamantine electron tubes, another one with that as well, and then last one with 2 diamonds and 2 iron ones. And this will give you the max amount of production that a bee can have. Where if you have these 3 in with an Essentia bee with the blinding tag, you'll get 15.79 production. And if you see on here, these drainers should slowly start filling up, with all the aspects. But we need a overflow protection system. So for that, we can just put an item conduit down anywhere, put it on insert, redstone, self-feed on, and then on the trash can, just put insert with a lower priority. So it'll only fill up once this inventory will fill up. Yeah, and that's it. Just keep the wireless connector around so we can connect it to the A2 system once that comes. Of course, this is Thaumcraft, so there has to be some extra bullshit. Along with Essentia, the mod also requires an energy source to charge your wands in the form of Centivis, or just CV, not to be confused with normal vis. Luckily, CV is really easy to set up, as you just need to make a budget Dyson sphere by trapping a node in place and forcefully siphoning all of its energy for profit. One thing is that the amount of CV per tick a node produces scales with the number of aspects it has, so you want to let it run with some empowering bees for a bit before its transformation. Once you have a decent amount of aspects in it, you can put it in the chamber and turn it into an energized node. From then on, it'll produce a flat amount of CVIS per tick as long as it has a redstone signal on the node transducer. You can transport the CVIS around with vis relays or A2, but in general the system as a whole is really flexible. Now to make this thing, you're going to need a sufficiently large node to actually get a decent amount of CVIS. So for here, I'm just going to use a cheated in aura node that has 500 of each aspect, but for you, you'll obviously get it legit however you can. You just want to put the node stabilizer at the bottom, the node transducer at the top, and a block of redstone. It'll enable the transducer, and it'll start sucking in random aspects from it. It might take a while for the energized node to actually create, but once it's done, it's done. And once it's finished, you're now able to extract CV from it with vis relays. To set up the initial few vis relays, all you need to do is put some smart cable down and then put the vis interface here with the vis relay here, and you can see it'll form a connection. We want the other one here for the future infusion setup that we'll have here because the wand station needs CVIS to work. Some of the later stations are going to need to be binded to the actual vis relay interface, but that's for later. And now finally, we get to do something good. The A2 portion of this is pretty standard despite being used for such a problem child for a mod. So first of all, we want to set up the basic controllers and the terminal. So the ones that are applicable to this mod anyways are the Arcane crafting terminal, the auto crafting terminal, the Essentia terminal. And then we want to put the drive, the auto crafting area, and then the infusion provider. This thing is going to be used for the infusion automation later. And then we want to put the blink patterns in here, and then the wand in the Arcane terminal, and then I just have 64k of items and Essentia. Now we have the Essentia terminal, but there's no linking. So we're gonna need to do that. So take the wireless connector that we had before, right click that to the B setup. And once it establishes a connection, yep, it'll slowly start filling in all the Essentia. It's super nice. And then also with these vis relays, you can see here that we need wand charge to actually perform any crafting recipes. So what we want to do is you want to shift right click with the memory card on the actual interface, and then right click on the crafting terminal like a P2P. And then you see it'll slowly start filling up with CVIS. Now that we have the means for auto crafting and we have the resources to supply the crafts, we can finally get on to building the machines for the actual recipes, which there are 3 of. The first of them is the Thaumatorium, which is just a straight upgrade to the Crucible. One thing here is that the mnemonic matrix allows for more recipes in the Thaumatorium, and you can put as many as you want to keep adding more recipes. Here I'll only just have 1 because I'm only planning on doing 3 recipes. For this build, you want to put the niter, and then the Crucible. Then take 2 of these alchemical constructs, put them on top, and then click it with a wand, turns it into an alchemical construct. Now, the way that it's facing is where it's going to output. So we want to put the interface here, and then the Essentia provider can't go on the side that it's facing, so we can just put it here. And what the Essentia provider will do, will just give all the Essentia that this alchemical construct wants. We want to wire this up with a wireless connector, so we can just put that there and there with a wireless key to give it channels. And then we can just do that. Now this is online, and we need to give this recipes. Well, let's put the mnemonic matrix on it first, and we can do some custom recipes. So for example, if we wanted thaumium, we can click that, and then it'll start making some thaumium, send it into the interface. But more importantly, it actually saves that recipe. So if I do like cotton seeds, for example, I can make void seeds. And then if I put in void seeds, I can make void metal. And then now it has all those recipes memorized. So if we take a pattern like this, and we take the recipe for the void seeds, and then make a custom pattern using 1 cotton seed, we can encode that. And then for the void metal ingot, we can also encode that as a recipe with just 1 void seed. And we can also just encode I misspelled that. We can also just encode the thaumium recipe. And then it's really simple. Once you have these done, you can just shove these in the interface, and then you can just request them. So if I wanted to request, let's say 10 void metal seeds, it will start making them. So it'll slowly start filling up and making the void seeds, and then it'll turn them into void metal ingots. One thing is that the Essentia provider can be world accelerated. So if the speed isn't fast enough for you, for how slowly it's filling up, you can always world accelerate it if the energy isn't a problem for you. The Arcane assembler's next, and this thing wants to be the assembly line so bad. You need to scan items with the knowledge core in the knowledge inscriber, which has like absolutely no similarities to the data stick and scanner. The scanning part also takes like 3 seconds, so I don't even know why it's even a feature in the first place. Despite these questionable game mechanics, you actually need both of these to automate any recipes, but it's really easy to set up anyways. You just put the knowledge inscriber down with the knowledge core, and you just put whatever recipe you want. So for this example, I'm going to be using the air arrows because they're really simple. And once it's learned it, you just take the knowledge core and you put it in here. You might notice that these bars are the aspects, so these need Centivis as well. So just do the same thing before, shift right click, and you can see it'll start slowly gaining a CV. Then what you do is you don't even need to put a pattern in. You just request as many as you want, and it'll start working. Look at that, done. Last up is the infusion, and I already know that half of you guys just skip straight to this part. Go back, there's good stuff there. That aside, I'm going to be doing this with Steve's Factory Manager 2, or just SFM. And before you guys get all your pitchforks up, put him down. I promise it's really intuitive. I mean, it looks scary at first, but in reality, it's just a bunch of if statements, and this avoids all the other bullshit redstone that half the other designs take, or just straight up open computers to brute force your way through most automation puzzles. Rants aside, you need these items in the chest here, and this design also heavily benefits from having a high stability to allow the system to just ignore symmetry when doing recipes. I know that a lot of you guys are not comfortable with SFM or have just never used it before, but I promise it's actually pretty intuitive. So first things first, you want to take these inventory cables. Anything adjacent to these are added to the total inventory of the SFM system. So you just want all the pedestals next to here. And then you want the inventory manager. This opens up the GUI to control all the logistics. And then on this end, we just want the wireless connector, the interface, and the chest to input it. And then we just put the other wireless connector here, and then we can just connect these together. And that'll be working. Next up, we need the actual logistics. So that means that we want the infusion claw. This thing basically just right-clicks the runic matrix for us, so the automation of like infusion as a whole is just even possible. So I'm gonna put the wand in here. So grab the wand. And you can see it'll slowly start filling with Centivis, and that's because of this thing. Then we need to connect this with a redstone emitter, which sends a redstone signal to this to tell it to actually right-click the runic matrix. And then just connect it with inventory cables. Last part to actually start setting up is the world accelerators. These are optional, but infusion as a whole is pretty slow, and there is a way to make it so it only turns on with redstone. So here we want to also have these with redstone emitters, or actually put the machine controller covers on them first to enable and disable them, and then keep them on enable with redstone. Then put redstone emitters, and then connect them with cable again. Then since these are IV, we want them both to have 6 amps of IV each. And because these are tile entities, we need to have them in TE mode. So that means we're going to need a screwdriver. There. Then take this factory labeler, and you can right click it, and a bunch of options will show up. And we want to name certain things so we can identify them easier. So for here, we want center. Click on it once, and then you just left click on whatever you want to label. So we want to label the center pedestal, and then we also want to label this redstone emitter to claw, so we can control the claw logistics. There, and that should be done. Now with the SFM logistics, I know it looks scary, I'll hold your hand through it. First things first, we're going to want a create trigger. You move things with this top left square, hold left click to move it. Then you can click on it to open the GUI, and click on things to open things up more. Here, we just want an interval on 1 second as the default. A trigger just tells the system how often should it check to do something. So just leave it as how it is. Then we want to create a flow control and set it to split 2 outputs. What this does is basically tells the system every second check this output and then check this output. That's all it is. So for the first output, we want to actually control the insertion of items once you request it from the AE2 system. So for that, we want a condition, an if statement. And this if statement is going to be checking if check pedestal empty. So all we do is with all the inventories, we just select all the pedestals. You can click them one by one, all of them like this, or you can just click this button to select all and then deselect these 2. And that should be done. And then take this output, click it once, and drag it onto this input. And it'll have an exclamation point because no condition is selected. So here we want to actually check if there's an item on it. So since we can't account for every single item, we just put a random item on. So here we want to check an item like dirt. And then of course we're not going to be using dirt for all of our infusions. So we want to right click this instead to pull up a new menu, and then click the left arrow ones to match all. So that it'll just check if there is a item on there. So if it's true, then we don't want the system to do anything. But if it's false, then we want to have the next check. And the next check is going to be, are there even items in the chest in the first place? So check chest. Then we do the same logistics, click the chest, and then check if it has dirt in it, but in quotes, because it's match all. Then we take this, the false, go here. And if there are items in the chest, then we want the infusion to go off. And if there isn't anything, we don't want anything to happen. So we want an input, which is here. And then the input is going to be the chest, obviously. And the output is going to be the pedestals. But this is why we named them. We want to output to the center pedestal first, and then the rest can be just whatever pedestals we want. So just all the rest. So select all and deselect these 2 and the center pedestal. And then from there, we need to actually turn on the claw so that the infusion can even start. So we want a redstone emitter, and this is why we name the claw. We can just click claw here, and then we click pulse. And we want do emit pulse, and that's it. Just connect it on to here. And then last thing, to turn on the world accelerators, we just create another redstone emitter, drag it on, and then select the other 2 that aren't the claw, and that's it, because the output is default on 15. And I kind of lied, you do need something here. We want to actually turn the redstone emitters off for lag reasons. So for false, put it here, and then just select all of them and set them to output of 0. And that should be good. Next up is the actual logic for the extraction of the item once the infusion is done. From here, we want to have another condition, and we want to set this to check if the recipe done. So to check if the recipe is done, we want to first check if the center pedestal has an item on it. So again, we just do this. If there is an item, we want there to be something, and if there isn't an item on there, then we don't want this to do anything. So we want a condition here, like that. And then if the center pedestal does have an item, we need to also make sure that the outer pedestals don't have an item. So for here, we just select all the outer pedestals, see if it has an item. And to see if it's empty, we want to take the false output here. And if there is no item on the outside and an item on the inside, that means that a recipe is finished. So then we can take an input from the center pedestal and then output it into the interface to send it back into the ME system. Now, from here, we need to actually create the pattern. First thing, on this ME interface, turn on blocking mode so that the recipes don't conflict. Then, we can set any recipe that we want, but for this example, I'm going to be using Iker because it's pretty useful. So just set the recipe and get rid of all these aspects. And once you've made the pattern, if you have the items in the ME system already, it should be good to go. So just put the thing in the interface. And if I request, let's say 10 Iker, it'll start. See? That wasn't that bad. I told you. Just a few things to note before saying goodbye. These aren't the only ways to charge nodes and get Essentia. I personally don't use these methods, but alternatives will be sourced and linked in the description. As for Thaumcraft as a whole, just make sure to clear your warp after you're done using the research completer, unless you want withers in your base. And I swear to fucking god, if you use Thaumcraft to automate IC2 crops, I'll come to your house and I'll find you.